L plus slow plus version
How is
40
this a world
plus
record?
Wait until a real speedrunner
It looks like you're traveling at half
Time is
speed.
so
Over
weak,
3 hour
I can
time?
do it with my eyes.
This is light work for a real speedrunner like me. Check his total time.
Fine, I'll do it myself. Hello fellow employees, it's Nitsboy/Sweeney here. I want to say that I've been watching a lot of runners struggle with getting to the higher quotas, let alone complete a 10 quota run. After I completed my first 10 quota, a lot of runners told me they planned on beating my time and getting a sub 3 hours, and I was excited to see how low we could get this time. But after a while, I've noticed more and more were struggling to get deeper runs going. Some said that because I was running on version 40, that I had an easier time completing the game, which is a fair point, so I decided that I would do another 10 quota run, but this time on version 45, which was the current patch at the time, and my goal was sub 3 hours just like them. As you saw from the intro, I was able to achieve that, but it only took me 1 day of trying. I couldn't really believe I was able to do it twice so quickly while so many other runners were still struggling. So I decided that I would make a guide for those wanting to get into speedrunning the game, or for those just wanting to achieve a higher quota. The second half of the video is more of what I do during my runs to help me increase my odds of finishing. I will link the VOD in the description if anyone wants to watch the full unedited version of it, and thanks for watching. Okay, so why do we go to Assurance? I know you've heard your friend swear a map is the best for so and so reason. But for running solo, Assurance is really the only option. Let me show you. So you can see all of the current moons in the game, how many objects can spawn on them, the average value of the items, and how quickly you can find them. If you just look at the total, Assurance beats every other free map except for March, and that's because of the bees, and in this category we don't really pick any of those up, so just ignore that. The Assurance map size inside the facility is half that of March's though, while the way in and out of the facility is around the same time. Assurance is by far the best map to run when solo and can be argued even with a group. So you've gone to Assurance all 3 days. It's time to sell. We won't just be selling the 130 scrap needed to make quota though. We're going to be selling all of the scrap we just collected. Stay with me though, I'll explain. By going over the quota requirement, we get this thing called overtime pay. The more money we go over, the more overtime pay. Now this overtime money helps us greatly save more money in the future. You see, we're going to be heading to Titan every quota after the first. To get there, we need 700 saved in the computer every time we need to head back for the next quota. So by selling as much money over on the lowest quota, we get an insane amount of overtime banked in our computer to help us get to Titan for the other quotas. You see, the average for the first 4 quotas is below 700. To make it back to Titan, we're going to have to sell over every time. That's over 1600 extra scrap needed to make it to Titan. You might be thinking, why don't we just wait until quota 5 to make it there? The reason is, we won't have enough to make the later quotas that way. So by selling as much as possible quota 1, with the overtime, I save around 200 scrap while going at Titan for those quotas. You may be asking, why Titan? Why not Rend or Dine? I heard Titan got nerfed and it's worse now. The answer is simple, time. The amount of time needed to get inside Titan and transport loot back to the ship is unmatched as a solo runner. I can get to the fire and main entrance on Titan within seconds of each other. I can explore a large amount of Titan every time by myself and find a lot of loot. The amount of time needed to get loot from the top of Titan to the ship? Seconds. Rend and Dine could never do that. Okay, so you're on Titan. Now what? First, I usually go check the fire exit. Most of the time, it's deeper in the factory, and I can explore areas farther in at the start of the day before many monsters spawn. You want to look for light sources, as they generally are areas that spawn loot. However, you don't want to spend too much time looking or go so deep you get lost or a monster spawns and kills you before you can get back. Done with fire, let's go to main. There will be 2 dead ends and 1 path that leads to the catacombs. You want to explore the dead ends first and then only dip your toe in the catacombs for the same reasons as fire. Okay, so it's time to go. It's getting later in the day and monsters can start spawning inside and out more frequently. A good time I set for myself to start leaving is around noon. Transferring only takes about a few hours of in-game time, which unless you are unlucky, nothing should spawn outside yet. If something did spawn early, or you were inside longer than you expected, this is how to deal with it. For dogs, it's simple. Just have push to talk on and crouch walk everywhere. As long as one doesn't beeline right for you, you'll be fine. The forest giants, the moment they see you, either call it and go in the ship, or climb quickly and escape them. It's up to you on which is better in the moment. This game is getting updated with big patches, a lot. You might see this video a few years from now. However, I think this guide will help you no matter what version you run, unless one thing happens. A better moon is added. One that has more loot, a faster time to get in both entrances, and lets you transfer that loot quicker. Besides all that, I'm confident Titan will be the only option for solo play if you want to make high quotas. Now that I've explained the basics of the run, I want to look at specific moments and explain some decisions I make throughout the run. One of the first questions you might have is why spend so long on the first quota? The reason I spent almost 20 minutes on assurance is you need every bit of scrap you can get in this run. Quota 9 and 10 do not mess around with how much they need. The average amount you need to complete the first 10 quotas is around 12,000. You need to average about 400 scrap a day to make that. If you breeze through the first 3 days to make it to Titan as quickly as possible, you might already be down 600 from where you want to be. Money matters a lot. You most likely will see a few mansions in your run. A Titan mansion is very large. The loot can spawn almost anywhere in it, and it's very hard to make the 400 average on a mansion map solo. A good rule to set for yourself is to try and find a kitchen quickly near one of the entrances. If you can't find one, just take the easy loot you can and leave early. There's no point wasting time looking in a death trap. When transferring loot, I usually make 2 piles. One at the front of the ship that will be used for the current quota, and once I reach that, I put the rest of the loot in the second pile in the back of the ship for the later quotas. To save time, it would be wise to keep track of what you have in each pile so you have an accurate count of how much you need for quotas. Weather conditions are a huge factor for this run. You want as many normal and foggy days as you can get. It's pretty obvious, but it can make or break the run very easily. Stormy and eclipse can make getting loot back to the ship or even leaving the ship in general a nightmare. Eclipse is scary for the obvious reason of giving outside enemies a chance to spawn instantly. I would argue that stormy days on Titan are the scariest weather condition though. The map is not that large outside, and it is very vertical, meaning random lightning strikes can kill you somewhat frequently. I've had multiple runs die because of transferring loot to the ship and randomly getting struck down. You're able to skip a few days in the run, so I would save them for these weather conditions. When I'm in the middle of a run and I see or hear certain monsters, I have protocols I have for myself to survive and get out with loot. The ghost girl usually ends a day for me. If she spawns, it can be very tough to outrun her inside the factory without running into a dead end or other monster. Outside, she can be kited very easily, but inside, she is extremely deadly. My most hated enemy is the ghost girl by far. Whenever she does show up, it's always right at 8 AM when I enter the factory and the day's over before I can even start. I wish as a solo she couldn't spawn right at the start, but you just have to take your lumps and pray some stuff is close to the main entrance so you can get in and get out quickly. The nutcrackers are to be avoided at all times. There's no way to easily kill them without wasting a lot of time, and they can kill you with a squeeze of the trigger. For mimics, don't panic. If they're outside the facility, you can easily kite them on stairs while transferring loot to the ship, and as long as nothing is spawned outside. They can die to dogs, so potentially baiting one to its death can be worth the gamble. If you find one inside, I would leave and check the other entrance and not go in that one anymore. I had 2 days back to back this run where mimics came outside to bother me while I was transferring loot, and then I never saw another one this run. I was really worried it would catch me while I was dropping stuff off in the ship, but as long as you play safe and don't panic, you can get everything transferred safely every time. Mimics aren't that scary. For coilheads, jumping across gaps is nearly impossible when having to watch one of these. The best you can do is find a closable door, lead it there, and shut it behind it. It takes the coilhead some time to open the door, which lets you run away and make the jump or get out. Exploring the other entrance is possible, but be careful it doesn't sneak up on you in that one as well. The Bracken is not as dangerous as you would think, as long as you are cautious about looking back and making sure you keep track of him. The most dangerous he can be is the first time when you don't realize when it spawned. After that, he's a very manageable monster. A spider, while it is hunting, can be very annoying and chase you for a long time, but you can't escape it even if cornered by just jumping over it. While it is on the wall, as long as you don't walk under it, it will stay perched. Once it's on the wall, it's basically not a threat anymore. Same thing with a thumper past version 47. It's not that big of a threat, and it can be dodged pretty easily if enough space is around. The final threat, a jester. For solo, he's usually not that bad of an enemy. You aren't really going in too deep to get lost and die before he pops. He can't start cranking without you hearing it, so you know when you have to go. And he resets once you've left, so you can go back in for more at a different entrance. However, you still have to be careful of him for a few reasons. One of them being, he will follow you around and push you off metal beams if you're attempting a jump. The other major reason is if he starts cranking while in the only doorway back. You'll be trapped and forced to wait until he pops and chases you. He builds a lot of momentum quickly, so if you aren't right next to an exit, it's almost always game over. I'd like to apologize to the slimes, the loot bugs, snare fleas, and spore lizards. Even though you are classified as monsters, you're not really a threat to the run in any way. The biggest threat to your run, funny enough, isn't monsters or even weather, but it's actually turrets. A turret is the deadliest enemy in the game for a solo run. Any patch after version 45, turrets can spawn on Titan, and with long dark hallways, you can easily get shot down without knowing where it is coming from. I would avoid exploring a turret seed the most, and if you do have to, make sure you have plenty of sprint saved up to be able to run around a corner. Do not jump down stairwells without seeing if a turret is actually in the room. It is almost impossible to climb stairs back up and live when a turret's scanning. I would say close to 90% of my runs end because of a horrible turret spawn that kills me before I can even react. Just running down a long hallway with no way out besides behind me, and right at the end of it, a turret will finally spot me. That's why keeping sprint is so important to make sure you have enough to get out of sticky situations. If you see long hallways, I would even recommend maybe just waiting at the end of it for a few seconds to see if a turret locks onto you before you proceed down it. I'll finish the key moments of the run with this clip near the end. It is on quota 8 with 1 day left before I have to sell. The previous day, I wasn't able to get any scrap due to an eclipse. I knew not getting anything the day before was going to hurt, so I needed to get a lot this day to make up for it. This led me to taking a few risky plays that I probably shouldn't to try and make sure I was able to hit quota 10. However, this day tried its hardest to kill the run. A jester blocking the doorway, a ghost girl, a bracken coming out of thin air it seemed like, a forest giant 2 feet from the fire door, and a dog near the ship. This day shows that even though the game has RNG elements, good decision making is crucially needed to make deep runs. Small mistakes cost you everything in this game. I knew going back inside was really greedy, but I thought I was behind and needed the money that was so close to the door. Having the jester trap me was crushing because I thought the run was dead and I just wasted over 2 hours. I think I lived by the skin of my teeth both on getting past him and getting out the door in time. I'm positive he was breathing down my neck. Then, to have to immediately run because of a giant right outside was another heart attack inducing moment. You'll always have one day that you should have died at least once, but if you make good decisions, you can survive. I hope the pointers at the start of the video and my thought process in the middle of a run helps you get to the higher quotas. My current time won't be anywhere near the record in a few years, hopefully, but this guide will stay relevant for anyone that wants to increase their quota goal and make it further than they have gone before. I'm Sweeney, I hope you subscribe, and thanks for watching.